NFL Combine over the weekend, and I probably watched way too much of it. I'm not really sure what I actually get out of it, but more than anything else, it helps me wrap my mind around being in draft mode. You know, there's so much else that goes on throughout the course of the year. You kind of have to break the year up into chunks when you're a variety artist like I am. So this time of year, you know, you try not to get too caught up in where a player ranks relative to their position based on what you watch in the NFL Combine. It's just more of a refresher. It's good to listen to the dialogue between the guys that are hosting it, Rich Eisen and Daniel Jeremiah and those guys. And you know, and specifically too, when you're looking at the college game, I don't think you want to get too much into evaluation mode with how a player looks on Saturday. You know, when you're looking at them in the context of watching a college football game, I don't think it's the right time to analyze that sort of thing of, well, where do they rank in terms of their position? You can kind of get a general idea of it, but I don't think you want to go too heavy into that sort of analysis, especially because we're breaking down these games in college for what they are. Is this team good enough to win this game? Was that performance good enough to justify where they are in terms of the ranking when we're talking about point spreads? You know, you end up too much in the weeds of thinking about things through the college football lens as opposed to the NFL prospect lens. And those are two completely different things. So rather than muddying the waters, you just try and kind of keep maybe one part of your mind on the prospect side when you watch this stuff, but really you're just trying to enjoy the game. So I try and separate the two because there is a difference. There's a difference between winning in college and proving that you can be top tier at the next level. Those are not the same things. It sounds like they should be. It's not always the case. And I am not saying that I have perfected the science in any way. I am merely an observer who fancies myself as a draft hobbyist. But that's just one of the thought strategies there. So when I watch these guys at the combine and then I go back and watch highlights, I watch it through a different eye. I look and say, how does this translate to the NFL? Not how does this help this particular team win at the college level? So a slight alteration in that respect. So over the weekend, I did what I always do when I start the process as it pertains to specifically quarterbacks. I like to go back and watch a condensed version of big games where the quarterback lost. So I look at the schedule. I see what were some of the biggest games they played and where did they lose. I want to see them in their moments of struggle. I want to see what they do to try and help lift their team out of a loss, or what do they look like when they're not having a good game. The last thing that you want to do, unless you're just simply trying to entertain yourself, is to just watch highlights. Those are hype reels. Everybody looks amazing. You don't learn anything. You can see what they look like at their absolute best, which is great, but we know that that's not the way the game is played, especially when you kick from the college level up to the NFL. Life becomes very difficult, and it's hard to break through. So you can watch games, even if you watch games on a highlight version, you don't have to have game film. You can go onto YouTube, look up a game, or, for example, Michael Penix lost the national championship game. I loved going back and watching that and watching Michael Penix. What did you look like when things were going well? What did you look like when things were going poorly? How much did you press when you were facing pressure, when you're trying to lead your team on a comeback, and all of those things? I think you learn way more about these guys when you watch through that lens. So that's just a little background on my thought process, but here's what I've come up with. My definitive top 6 in this year's draft class at the quarterback position. And I think it's pretty consensus at this point that there's a group of 6 quarterbacks that are at least worthy of consideration to be first round selections. And I think I'm at around 5 for what I would feel comfortable with, but we could definitely see 6 go this year. So number 1 for me is Drake May out of UNC. This guy throws a beautiful ball, perfect arm for the NFL. He can run, but doesn't necessarily rely on it. I get all the talent of Caleb Williams without all of the entitlement, so I'm all in on that. Number 2 is Caleb Williams. Now, I'm not a fan of his personality. I think he comes across as super entitled, and if you look at the history of quarterbacks in the NFL, very few, if any, are able to break through and win Super Bowls if they have an air of entitlement. It takes a very specific type of personality to get through 17 games in the regular season, a grueling postseason, and then the biggest game of the year in the Super Bowl and hoist that Lombardi trophy. And I don't think he has that quality, but talent alone, I'd be willing to take a chance on being wrong there. And you don't have to win a Super Bowl in order to be a successful draft pick. Caleb Williams is instantly going to make whatever team drafts him super relevant, and they're probably going to win games out of the gate just because he will be such a tough quarterback to figure out for opposing defensive coordinators. Number 3, I have Jayden Daniels. I think he fits the mold of what today's NFL quarterback looks like. Good enough arm with scramble ability off the charts. He's super fast in the open field, doesn't have the juke ability of Lamar Jackson, so he could get himself into some trouble there, but he's so fast that he can run away from contact. I do worry about his size, not his height, but just his frame. He's extremely slender. I think he could get killed at the NFL level, so he's got to use those legs in order to stay away from contact. And number 4 is Michael Penix. I think he's a natural-born leader. You see it in the way that he's able to rally the team. His team all year, this past year, he put them on his back, and I thought he made the guys around him better. And at the Combine, he looked like an alpha. Just looked like the guy that everybody sort of flocked to. His size, his hand size is off the charts, which does matter in the NFL, and he's super accurate at all levels. The negatives that I do see with him, he gets caught flat-footed far too often and really isn't all that mobile, which in today's NFL, if you don't have that, it's just such a cheat code. So to not have that in your arsenal, like we see with Tua, another left-handed quarterback, that can hamper your upside. But super accurate quarterback, and injuries are concerned too. So that's why I have him at 4. I wanted to put him at 3, but between the lack of mobility and the injury concern, I had to put him at 4. But for me, 3 and 4 are very close. Number 5, I have Bo Nix. I am a sucker for overcoming adversity at the college level. We sort of see that thing succeed in the NFL all the time. What Bo Nix recovered from after a treacherous start to his college career at Auburn was remarkable. And I see a guy that is a high-level game manager, maybe like just slightly above that sort of range in the NFL. Doesn't get lost when the play breaks down. He's super accurate in the short and intermediate areas of the field. He's not the kind of guy I see that's going to take a game over, but he's certainly the kind of player that's going to keep you involved. He's a gamer, I think is the best way to put it. And number 6 for me is J.J. McCarthy. I think the biggest gap between where the, quote, NFL experts and I have these players is J.J. McCarthy. I think he's being given way too much credit for his youth. Scouts do this all the time in the NBA. They do it in the NFL. Prospect huggers, they are obsessed with younger talent because they view that as an area of natural athletic growth. Well, you're younger, so you possess more upside. I don't think it always works that way. He's 3 years younger than Penix and Nix, and he's being given credit for that. But I just don't see it with J.J. McCarthy. And part of it is that he wasn't asked to do very much at Michigan. That was a defensive-minded team. They were elite defensively, elite in their run game. 2 running backs that we're going to see end up getting drafted at the NFL level. And he was uneven at the Combine. Every year we see a quarterback get overdrafted in the NFL, and I think he is going to be the one.